It's funny how they say you can learn a lot about a person by looking in their trash.
Right. Yeah.
Well, kind of what we're doing today is going through the ancient equivalent,
Yeah.
special deposits. These are special deposits left behind by the linear band ceramic culture.
The LBK.
LBK for short.
Yeah.
Some of Europe's earliest farmers, really, and flourishing around 5000 BC. And you've given us some fascinating material to dig into for this deep dive.
Yes.
A scientific paper and a press release all about these deposits that were found in Germany. But here's the thing, what's really intriguing is that they're filled with grinding stones. It's not like they were just tossed aside. These were very carefully arranged.
It is captivating, isn't it?
It really is.
What I think is so captivating about the LBK is they represent this pivotal moment in human history.
Right.
This transition from hunting and gathering to settled agriculture.
Yeah.
And these grinding stone deposits, rather than being mere trash heaps, seem to offer a window into their beliefs about time, possibly even their cosmology.
Okay, so set the scene for me. Why are grinding stones so significant?
Oh, okay.
I mean, they're just tools, right?
Yeah, you think that, right? Just tools.
Oh.
But in the LBK, grinding stones were primarily associated with women and their daily labor of processing grain,
Okay.
a staple food. And it was a repetitive, time-consuming task, deeply intertwined with the rhythms of life, sunrise to sunset, planting to harvest.
Every day.
Every single day. And the stones themselves, through their use, became imbued with this sense of time's passage.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So the research suggests that these deposits weren't just random discards.
Right.
The paper highlights 3 specific locations in Germany, 2 near the Gussick Circle, an early astronomical site,
Yes.
and 1 in Sumerda. What makes these deposits stand out?
Well, it's the combination of factors that makes them so fascinating.
Okay.
First, the stones were meticulously arranged,
Okay.
often in pairs with grinding slabs and hand stones placed together touching.
Ah.
Many were oriented east-west, perhaps symbolic of the sun's path. Then there's the condition of the stones themselves.
Okay.
Some brand new, others showing varying degrees of wear, and some almost completely worn out. It's as if each stone represents a stage of life.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It is.
Okay, so let's unpack these specific deposits.
Okay.
Starting with those found near the Gussick Circle, what makes them unique?
Well, one deposit was found right next to a house,
Okay.
predating the Gussick Circle, dating back to around 5,200 BC.
Wow.
Imagine this. You have a dwelling, and right beside it, this pit containing grinding stones.
Yeah.
Intentionally placed, not just haphazardly discarded.
So carefully placed.
Carefully placed suggests a level of intentionality, perhaps even ritualistic behavior.
Yeah, I was going to say ritualistic or ceremonial almost,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And what about the other Gussick deposit?
Okay.
That's the one associated with the burial, right?
Yes, and it's incredibly evocative picture. This human skeletal remains positioned facing east as if greeting the sunrise and buried beneath them.
Whoa.
5 grinding stones laid out east-west.
Really?
Some are even arranged as they would have been used, the handstone resting atop the grinding slab.
Wow.
This alignment, coupled with the solstice connection, hints at a deeper understanding of time and its relationship to human life.
We have this alignment with the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. Another layer of time symbolism woven into this deposit.
Right.
Almost feels like a deliberate attempt to connect human mortality with these grand cosmic cycles.
It is thought-provoking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then there's the Sumerda deposit, which presents us with a different kind of arrangement.
Okay.
It consists of 2 layers of grinding stones, with the top layer oriented north-south and the bottom layer east-west. It's a fascinating visual pattern, almost like a deliberate symbolic statement.
Each deposit has its own fingerprint, yet they all seem to point toward this concept of time as a central theme for the LBK.
Exactly. And when we delve into the specifics of how the grinding stones were made and used, the story gets even richer. The researchers conducted something called morphotechnical analysis, which essentially means they examined the shape-size material and wear patterns of the stones in great detail.
Okay, let's dive into those details.
Yeah.
What can we learn from the physical characteristics of the grinding stones themselves?
Well, one striking detail is that many of the grinding slabs had a high transformation index,
Okay.
which essentially means almost all sides of the stone were meticulously shaped. Even parts that didn't directly impact the grinding process.
Wow.
It wasn't just about functionality. There was a deliberate artistry involved.
It's interesting to think they would invest so much time and effort into shaping these tools.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a reverence for the craft, for the objects themselves.
Yeah.
Do you think it points to a purely practical concern, or could there be something more symbolic at play?
I think that's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
The effort invested certainly suggests that these stones were valued, perhaps even cherished. It's also worth noting that the materials themselves weren't always local. The researchers traced some of the stones back to their likely sources, indicating that they had been transported from quite a distance.
That speaks to a level of intentionality that goes beyond mere convenience.
Right.
They weren't just grabbing any random rock. They were seeking out specific materials for their grinding stones, adding another layer of time and effort to their creation.
And that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
The real revelation comes when we examine the wear patterns on the stones,
Okay.
which tell a fascinating story about their biography, as the researchers put it.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yes.
Tell me more about these wear patterns and what they reveal.
Imagine a brand new grinding stone, its surface smooth and unmarked.
Yeah.
It represents a beginning, a potential waiting to be unlocked.
Hmm.
Then, as the stone is used day after day,
Yeah.
it develops characteristic grooves and concavities from the repeated grinding action.
It's almost as if those marks are like a palimpsest.
Yes.
Those ancient manuscripts where you can see layers of writing revealing how the object was used and how it changed over time.
Exactly. And these marks on the grinding stones speak volumes about the time and effort invested in them.
Right.
They tell us about the daily grind, quite literally, of processing grain, a task that was so essential to the LBK's way of life.
So as the stones wear down, approaching the end of their usefulness,
Yeah.
do you think they take on a new meaning, especially in the context of these ritualistic deposits?
That's a fascinating question, and I think the answer might lie in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore how the LBK may have viewed these worn-out stones, and how the act of depositing them, particularly in association with burials, could have held profound symbolic significance.
I'm very intrigued.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear more.
It's exciting stuff.
So we've established that these grinding stones were more than just tools to the LBK. They were crafted with care, often using materials transported from afar, and their wear patterns tell a story of daily life and time's passage.
Yeah.
But how does that connect to the idea of them being ritually deposited?
That's where the context of these deposits becomes crucial. Remember how we talked about the varying degrees of wear on the stones?
Right.
Well, a brand new stone with its smooth surface represents a beginning full of potential, just like a newborn,
Okay.
as it's used.
Yeah?
It gains those characteristic grooves and marks reflecting the passage of time, the work invested, and the sustenance it helped create.
So it's not just a random assortment of stones being buried.
No.
It's a deliberate selection that seems to mirror the stages of life.
Precisely. And when a stone reaches the end of its useful life,
Right.
it becomes symbolic of an ending, a completion of a cycle.
Right.
This is where the act of depositing them takes on a deeper meaning. It's like saying, this tool has served its purpose, it has lived its life, and now we lay it to rest with respect.
That's a really powerful image, almost like a funeral for an object that played such a vital role in their lives.
Yeah.
But could there be other interpretations?
Sure.
I mean, is it possible they were simply discarding worn-out tools and were reading too much symbolism into it?
That's a valid point, and researchers do acknowledge that interpreting the beliefs of a long-gone culture is always challenging.
Right.
However, the evidence, when taken together, suggests something more deliberate, more symbolic at play. It's not just the varying wear stages.
Yeah.
It's the careful arrangement, the intentional placement, the association with burials and solar alignments. It all points towards a deliberate act imbued with meaning.
It's like they were weaving a narrative with these objects connecting the everyday act of grinding grain to these larger concepts of time, life cycles, and even cosmology.
Yeah.
But this raises another question for me. We've been talking about time in a very general sense, but what specifically can we learn about the LBK's understanding of time from these deposits?
That's a great question, and the research offers some fascinating insights. We can see evidence of their perception of time operating on multiple levels.
Okay.
Firstly, there's the daily cycle embodied in the act of grinding itself. The rhythmic motions, sunrise to sunset, the constant need to produce food. This is mirrored in the wear patterns on the stones, showing the accumulation of daily effort.
Right, so the stones become almost like a diary of their daily lives.
Yeah.
each mark a testament to the time invested in sustaining themselves.
Exactly. And then we have the yearly cycle, the changing seasons, planting, harvesting, and the cyclical nature of agriculture, which was so central to their existence.
Right.
The connection to the summer solstice, evident in the burial at Gosek, adds another layer to this, suggesting an awareness of solar events and their significance.
So the stones themselves, through their varying degrees of wear, could represent stages in this yearly cycle as well.
Yes.
A new stone might symbolize the start of the planting season, a worn-out stone, the completion of the harvest.
Precisely. And then there's the human life cycle: birth, growth, maturity, death.
Yeah.
The stones with their lifespan mirror this trajectory. A new stone is like a newborn full of potential, and as it wears down, it represents the progression through life stages, culminating in its eventual death or deposition.
So in a way, the LBK were connecting their own lives, their own mortality, to these larger cycles of time, daily, yearly, and even across generations.
And it's not just individual lives. Remember that the LBK were known for relocating their villages ever so often?
Right.
Some researchers believe that these grinding stone deposits might have also marked the end of a settlement's life cycle, a symbolic act of closure before moving on to a new location.
It's like they were saying goodbye, not just to their tools, but to the very place they had called home. It's incredible how these deposits weave together the personal lives of the LBK with the grand cycles of nature and even the lifespan of their communities. But let's get back to the stones themselves.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that they were often made from materials sourced from far-off locations. What can that tell us about the LBK?
This detail opens up a whole new avenue of exploration. It tells us they had knowledge of distant landscapes, possibly indicating established trade networks, or at least a willingness to travel significant distances to acquire these specific materials. It also raises questions about their understanding of geology and the properties of different types of stone.
So they weren't just relying on whatever was readily available.
Right.
They were actively seeking out materials that they deemed suitable, valuable, or perhaps even sacred for these grinding stones. It speaks to a level of sophistication that we might not typically associate with a Neolithic culture.
Exactly. And this aspect of the research really challenges our preconceived notions of what life was like for early farmers.
Right.
The LBK clearly had a complex understanding of their environment, a sophisticated knowledge of materials, and a deep-seated connection to these objects that went far beyond mere practicality.
It's a reminder that our ancestors, even those living thousands of years ago, were intelligent, resourceful, and capable of creating meaning and beauty in their world. But let's not forget the central role of women in all of this. We've talked about how these grinding stones were primarily associated with women's work, their daily labor of processing grain. What can these deposits tell us about the lives and beliefs of LBK women?
That's a crucial aspect of this research, and one that deserves more attention. We often have a limited view of women's roles in prehistoric societies, but these deposits offer a tangible glimpse into their lives, their skills, and their spiritual connection to the world around them.
I'm eager to delve deeper into that.
Yeah.
What insights can we gain about these women and their relationship with time, with their tools, and with their communities?
Well, to understand that, we need to take a closer look at the symbolic link between women grinding stones and the cycles of life, a theme that emerges powerfully from these deposits.
It's really striking how this whole discussion about the LBK and their relationship with time has also revealed so much about the people themselves,
Right.
particularly women and their roles in that society.
Absolutely. I think these deposits offer such a unique window into the lives of LBK women.
Yeah.
You know, the grinding stone, so central to their daily tasks, becomes a symbol not just of time's passage, but of women's work, their contributions to the community,
Right.
and maybe even their spiritual connection to these cycles of life.
I mean, it's just amazing to think that an object as seemingly mundane as a grinding stone
Yeah.
could hold such profound meaning
Right.
and reflect so much about the people who used it.
That's the beauty of archaeology, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It challenges us to look beyond the surface and see the stories hidden in these everyday objects.
Absolutely.
And in this case, the grinding stone becomes this really powerful symbol of women's roles, roles that might have been overlooked or undervalued in traditional historical narratives.
You know, we often think of prehistoric societies as being male-dominated.
Right.
But these deposits suggest a much more nuanced picture.
Yeah.
The care and the attention given to these stones, the way they were incorporated into rituals and burials, it all speaks to the importance of women's contributions.
Precisely. And it's not just about practical contributions like food production.
Right.
The association of grinding stones with life cycles, with the solstice, with the very rhythm of existence,
Yeah.
suggests a deeper symbolic significance attached to women's roles. They were seen as being connected to these fundamental forces, perhaps even as intermediaries between the human world and the cosmos.
This challenges us to rethink our assumptions about gender roles in the past,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It suggests a level of respect and maybe even reverence for women's power and their connection to the natural world.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that history is not just about kings and battles.
Right.
It's about the everyday lives of people, the objects they used, the beliefs they held, and the legacies they left behind.
Absolutely.
The LBK and their grinding stones offer us a glimpse into a world where women's work was not just essential, but deeply meaningful
Yeah.
and symbolically powerful.
It makes me wonder, are there other examples from archaeology where we see this kind of connection between everyday objects, women's roles, and deeper symbolic meanings?
Oh, absolutely. There are countless examples across different cultures and time periods. Think of the intricately decorated pottery created by women in many ancient societies, or the elaborate textiles woven by women in cultures around the world.
Yeah.
These objects were not just functional. They were expressions of artistry skill and cultural identity, often imbued with symbolic meanings related to fertility, life cycles, and spiritual beliefs.
It's amazing how these seemingly ordinary objects can unlock such profound insights into the past.
Yeah.
And in this case, they offer a powerful testament to the role of women in shaping those societies.
And I think there's a valuable lesson for us here in the present day.
Okay.
The LBK and their grinding stones remind us to look beyond the surface, to appreciate the stories held within the objects around us, and to recognize the enduring power of women's contributions throughout history.
This deep dive has been truly eye-opening.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's shifted my perspective not just on the Neolithic period, but on how we view the past and the stories we tell about it.
To you, dear listener, we leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Take a moment to consider the objects in your own life that hold meaning for you. What stories do they tell about your journey, your values, your connection to the past, and the people who came before you? Perhaps like the LBK and their grinding stones, you'll find unexpected layers of meaning and a deeper appreciation for the objects that shape our lives.